Honestly, I do not even know where to begin with Sophie and Benedict, because every time I think about where these two are right now, my heart just sinks a little. And the episode 5 trailer makes it very clear that things between them are about to get so much heavier before they get better. If you have been following this season, you already know that Benedict made what is honestly one of the most painful proposals in all of Bridgerton history. He asked Sophie to be his mistress, and even though part of me understands the world he was living in, the era he was trapped in, and the impossible position he found himself in, the other part of me felt exactly what Sophie felt in that moment. Because Sophie, more than anyone in this entire show, knows what it means to be on the outside. She knows what it feels like to exist in a world that does not see you as worthy, to grow up as an illegitimate child with no real place to call her own. So for Benedict, the man she loves, to offer her a life built on secrecy and shadows, rather than standing beside her in the light, that was not something she could accept. And she did not. And now in episode 5, we are going to feel the full weight of that silence between them. What the trailer shows us is a cold distance that has settled between Sophie and Benedict, and it is the kind of cold that does not come from anger alone. It comes from heartbreak. You can see it in the way they move around each other. There is no warmth, no easy smiles, none of that electricity we have been watching build between them all season. And because here is what makes this episode so fascinating and so emotionally complicated. Benedict is going to reach his breaking point. He has been trying to be reasonable, trying to be practical, trying to think about what their life together would realistically look like in a society that would never fully accept them as equals. But reason and practicality only hold for so long when you are genuinely, deeply in love with someone. And Benedict is. So in episode 5, we are going to start seeing him crack. The walls he has been building around his feelings are going to start coming down. And what is underneath those walls is a man who is willing to throw away everything the world has told him he should care about just to be with her. That is the Benedict we have been waiting for all season. And the trailer is teasing us with just enough glimpses of that version of him to make the wait absolutely unbearable. But then, just when you think Benedict is finally going to get it together and go to her and say the right thing, the trailer throws in a moment that changes everything. And this is the detail that I cannot stop thinking about. There is a scene, and if you watched the trailer closely, you will know exactly what I am talking about, where Sophie is playing with the children at home, laughing, eyes covered during a game of blind man's buff, completely unguarded in a way we rarely get to see her. And Benedict is watching her, and in that moment, something shifts in him, something clicks, because he realizes, right there in that ordinary, beautiful, unscripted moment, that Sophie is the lady in silver, the woman from the masquerade, the woman he has never been able to forget, the woman he has been searching for, without even fully realizing he was still searching. And instead of that realization bringing him joy, instead of that moment it breaks something open in him. Because now he is not just hurt, he is betrayed. He feels like the person he loves most has been holding a secret that belonged to him too. And that anger, that raw and complicated grief, a feeling like you have been kept in the dark by the one person you trusted completely, is going to be written all over his face. And honestly, I cannot wait to watch that scene, even though I know it is going to absolutely wreck me. And what comes after that confrontation is what makes episode 5 so important for their entire story. Because Benedict is going to demand answers. He is going to need Sophie to tell him everything. Her past, who she really is, where she came from, all of it. And every new piece of information he hears is going to hit him differently than the last. This is not going to be a clean or comfortable conversation. It is going to be messy and painful, and full of all the things that two people who love each other but have been circling each other in fear finally have to say out loud. And Sophie, who has spent her entire life hiding the truth of who she is, just to survive, is going to have to decide in that moment how much of herself she is willing to show. That vulnerability, that terrifying act of being fully seen by someone, is at the heart of everything that episode 5 is building toward. And if the trailer is any indication, we are not going to be able to look away for a single second. Okay, now let's talk about the storyline that I have to be completely honest with you about. Because out of everything happening this season, Francesca's story is the one that has been living in my head rent-free ever since the trailer dropped. And I think the reason it hits so differently is because it is not loud, it is not dramatic in the way that Benedict and Sophie are dramatic, with proposals and confrontations and cold silences. Francesca's story is quiet. It is internal. In glances that last a second too long, in conversations that feel completely normal on the surface but leave you with this strange, heavy feeling in your chest that you cannot quite explain. And episode 5 is where that quiet storm is finally going to start showing its full power. If you have been watching this season carefully, and I know you have, you already understand that season 4 is really Francesca's season of self-discovery. On the surface, she has everything that should make her happy. She has John, who is genuinely one of the kindest, most patient, most emotionally available men we have ever seen in the Bridgerton universe. He loves her, he is steady, he is safe, and Francesca cares about him, that much is clear. But there is something that has been sitting just underneath the surface of their relationship all season. Something that Francesca herself cannot fully put into words yet, which is that being with John feels right in every logical way, but does not feel complete in the way that she always imagined love would feel, and she does not know what to do with that. She does not even fully know how to admit it to herself yet. Because how do you explain to someone, or even to yourself, that a perfectly good love is somehow not the love you are looking for? And then Michaela arrives, and everything changes. Now, if you caught the trailer, and you were paying close attention to Francesca's face in the moments she shares with Michaela, you already felt it. There is something there that is completely different from anything we have seen from Francesca this entire season. When she is with John, Francesca is calm, composed, a little reserved, always carefully managing how much of herself she lets show. But when Michaela enters the room, something in Francesca shifts in a way that she clearly does not expect and does not know how to control. It is not something she is performing, it is not something she is choosing. It just happens, and that involuntary quality of it, that feeling of your own heart doing something without asking your permission first, is exactly what makes this storyline so emotionally powerful and so important. What the episode 5 trailer is hinting at is that Michaela's arrival is not going to be a small or casual thing for Francesca. It is going to be the kind of arrival that rearranges something inside of her. Because Michaela is not just John's sister showing up to be polite and have tea and make pleasant conversation. Michaela is sharp and curious, and she sees people in a way that most characters in this show do not. And when she turns that attention toward Francesca, when she really looks at her and talks to her and treats her like someone worth understanding, Francesca does not quite know what to do with that feeling, because it is unfamiliar. And unfamiliar feelings are always the most terrifying ones, especially when you are someone like Francesca who has spent so long trying to understand herself and still feels like there are parts of her that remain completely out of reach. And this is what makes episode 5 such a turning point for her arc, because up until now, Francesca has been drifting through this something up in her that cannot go back to sleep. The conversations between them that the trailer is teasing are going to go deeper than small talk very quickly. There is an ease between them that feels both natural and startling at the same time, the kind of ease that makes you feel like you have known someone forever even though you have only just met. And Francesca, who is not someone who opens up easily or quickly, is going to find herself saying things to Michaela that she has never said to anyone else. Not because she planned to, but because Michaela makes her feel like it is safe too. Now here is where it gets even more complicated, and honestly even more heartbreaking. Because John is still there. John is still in love with her. John is still doing everything right. And Francesca is not a cruel person. She is not someone who is going to carelessly break someone's heart without feeling the weight of that. So episode 5 is going to put her in this impossible emotional space, where she is starting to feel something new and overwhelming and confusing on one side, while still holding on to something comfortable and familiar and good on the other. And she does not have the language for any of it yet. She does not have the framework to ignore. Because the more time Francesca spends with Michaela, the harder it is going to be to pretend that what she is feeling is simple or ordinary, or easy to put away in a drawer and forget about. And the trailer is giving us just enough of those charged, quiet, electric moments between them to make it absolutely clear that whatever is happening inside Francesca right now, it is only going to grow louder from here. And honestly, watching her figure out who she really is and what she really wants is the storyline I am most emotionally invested in this entire season, because it feels so real and so human and so deeply true to the way that self-discovery actually works. It is never a single moment. It is always a slow, breathtaking unraveling. And episode 5 is where that unraveling truly begins. Now let me take you into the storyline that has genuinely made me emotional more times than I am willing to admit. Because Violet and Marcus are doing something to my heart this season that I was completely unprepared for, and the episode 5 trailer is confirming that what is coming next for them is going to be even more beautiful and even more moving than anything we have already seen. Because this is not just a love story between two people who found each other. This is a love story about a woman who spent decades pouring every single piece of herself into her family, into her children, into the Bridgerton name, and who is now, finally, after all of that, allowing herself to be loved in return. And if you do not find that devastating and wonderful in equal measure, then I genuinely do not know what to tell you. Let's talk about who Violet is, because I think sometimes in the middle of all the younger, louder love stories happening around her, we forget just how remarkable she actually is. Violet Bridgerton raised 8 children. 8. She kept a family together after losing her husband. She navigated seasons and scandals and all of the impossible social pressures of that era with grace and strength and a warmth that never once felt performative. She gave and gave and gave. And for a very long time, her own heart, her own desires, her own need to be seen and chosen and cherished by someone took a backseat to everything and everyone else. So when Marcus came into her life and looked at her not as a mother or a widow or the matriarch of a great family, but simply as a woman he wanted to know and be near and love, that was enormous. That was not a small thing. And Violet, being Violet, did not just fall into it carelessly. She thought about it. She worried about what her children would think. She questioned whether it was appropriate, whether it was too late, whether she even deserved to want this for herself after so long. And watching her slowly, carefully, bravely decide that yes, she does deserve this, yes, it is not too late, yes, she is going to let herself have this, has been one of the most quietly powerful journeys of this entire season. And Marcus, can we just take a moment for Marcus, because he has been so patient with her, so genuinely, consistently, beautifully patient. He has not pushed her or pressured her or made her feel like her hesitation was an inconvenience. He has just been there, steady and warm and completely certain about her in a way that makes you understand why Violet. And now in episode 5, the trailer is showing us that their story is about to move into something even deeper and even more significant, because the careful, gentle dance they have been doing around each other is coming to an end. And what replaces it is something that looks, from everything the trailer is hinting at, like a love that has finally decided to stop being cautious and start being real. Now, what I find so fascinating about where Violet and Marcus are headed in episode 5 is that their relationship is going to start affecting the entire Bridgerton household in ways that nobody quite anticipated. Because Violet moving forward with Marcus is not just a personal decision. It has ripple effects. It changes the shape of the family. And the trailer is giving us glimpses of those ripple effects starting to show up. In the way the children react, in the way the house itself seems to shift around this new reality. And I think that is such a smart and honest way to tell this story, because love at that stage of life, love that comes after years of being defined by your role in other people's lives, never happens in a vacuum. It touches everything. It asks everyone around you to adjust and grow and make space for a version of you they have never had to see before. And watching the Bridgerton children, these characters we have known and loved for seasons, navigate the idea of their mother, not just as their mother, but as a woman with her own love story, is going to add such a rich and unexpected layer to episode 5. And then there is the question that the trailer is very deliberately leaving open, the question of what comes next for them. Because, from everything we know about where this season is heading, Violet and Marcus are moving towards something permanent, something that looks like a future together. And that future, if it happens the way I believe it is going to happen, means a wedding. A real, full, fairy tale wedding that is going to sit right alongside Benedict and Sophie's and give us something we have honestly never had before in Bridgerton history, which is 2 weddings in a single season. And the idea of watching Violet walk toward a new chapter of her life with the same grace and love she has poured into every other chapter, genuinely makes me want to cry in the best possible way. Because she has earned it. More than almost any other character in this show, Violet Bridgerton has earned her happy ending. But here is the detail from the trailer that I keep coming back to. The one that has the biggest implications not just for Violet and Marcus, but for the entire Bridgerton world as we know it. If Violet marries Marcus, she moves out of Bridgerton House. And that means Bridgerton House needs someone to fill it. And the trailer is dropping very subtle but very deliberate hints that Kate and Anthony, the couple we fell completely in love with back in season 2, could be the ones to move in. And if that happens, if we actually get Kate and Anthony back in Bridgerton House as a permanent presence, then suddenly every single character, with Eloise still finding herself, with Francesca going through everything she is going through, with Hyacinth and Gregory still having their own stories to tell, that is a family dynamic that could carry this show for seasons and seasons to come. And episode 5 is planting the seeds of all of that, right now, in the quietest, most careful way. And if you are watching closely enough, you can already see the shape of what is growing. What moves me most about Violet and Marcus, though, above all the plot developments and all the implications for the wider story, is simply what they represent. They represent the idea that it is never too late, that love does not have an expiration date, that choosing yourself, choosing joy, choosing to open your heart again even after loss, and even after years of putting everyone else first, is always the right thing to do. And in a show full of young, passionate, stormy love stories, having Violet and Marcus at the center of the season as a quieter, steadier, equally powerful kind of love is something I did not know I needed until I had it. And episode 5 is going to remind us all over again exactly why this couple is so special. Because the best love stories are not always the loudest ones. Sometimes the most extraordinary thing 2 people can do is simply choose each other, quietly, completely, and without looking back. And now we have arrived at the final piece of this puzzle. And I want you to stay with me here because this section is where everything comes together. This is where all the individual threads we have been pulling at, Sophie and Benedict, Francesca and Michaela, Violet and Marcus, all of it starts to weave into something bigger. And episode 5, from everything the trailer is showing us, is not just another episode in the middle of a season. It is the episode. And before we get into all of that, we need to talk about Eloise. Because Eloise's story this season has been so quiet that some people have almost forgotten it is there. And that is exactly the point. Because the quietest stories in Bridgerton are always the ones that hit the hardest when they finally speak up. Now, if you have been watching Eloise this season, you will have noticed something interesting about her. She seems happy. Genuinely, freely, contentedly happy in a way that we have not really seen from her before. Because Eloise has always been the one pushing against something, against the marriage market, against society's expectations, against the idea that her worth is tied to finding a husband. And for a long time that push came from a place of real frustration and real pain. But this season, something has settled in her. She has found a kind of peace in her freedom that feels earned rather than forced. She is not fighting against anything right now. She is just living. And there is something so beautiful about watching a character who spent so long at war with her own world finally find a moment of genuine stillness. But the trailer for episode 5 is hinting that that stillness is about to be interrupted. Not violently, not dramatically, not in the loud and chaotic way that most Bridgerton disruptions tend to arrive, but gently, in the way that real life tends to surprise you, not with a storm, but with a quiet knock at the door that you were not expecting and do not quite know how to answer. And that knock for Eloise comes in the form of Sir Philip Crane. Now, for those of you who know the books, that name is going to mean a great deal to you already. And for those of you who are coming to this purely through the show, what I will tell you is that Sir Philip Crane is not a simple character, and his connection to Eloise is not a simple story.